Hello and welcome to Game Theory. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, we're going to break down 6'8" wing forward Alex Toohey from the Sydney Kings. He's been one of the more impressive prospects that we've gotten a chance to evaluate through the early portion of the 2025 NBA draft cycle. He had a couple of 20-point games in front of NBA scouts at the NBL Blitz. Then early on in the season, has had a couple of really strong games as well for the Sydney Kings in their regular season play. Today, we're going to talk about the game that occurred over the weekend against Illawarra. Illawarra is 3-0. They're a really strong team. And he ended up having what I would say has been the midpoint game of his 5 games that he's played so far. 16 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, went 6 for 9 from the field. Was just a really, really effective overall player for the Sydney Kings, but it's not quite the standout performances that he's had in his 20-point games from the Blitz. It's not quite the worst games he's had, where he had double figures in their opener against Adelaide, wasn't particularly good in their second game against Perth. I kind of just tried to pick the middle ground with Toohey just to get a general sense of where he's at. So we're going to break down his game here against Illawarra and kind of discuss what makes him such an interesting prospect. I think that what I would kind of compare him to right now is something similar to a Sam Hauser-y or Simone Fontecchio kind of bigger wing that has a very tall standing reach. He was measured at a 9-foot standing reach at Hoop Summit a couple of years ago, or really 18 months ago, I guess. 6'8", 6'11", 7-foot wingspan, something like that. But also having some ball skills and being able to shoot. The shooting is really the swing skill here, what level he gets to as a shooter. He's already a very effective shooter, but if he can get to that next level where he is elite, maybe not quite at the level of a Sam Hauser, he is going to be like a very, very real NBA rotation player, I think. So let's kind of dive in and talk about the tape and talk about what I'm really interested in with Alex Toohey. Okay, so first play here. Sydney's going to get into their action. As you can see, Illawarra has kind of blitzed them early on in this game. Toohey's going to come up. They're just going to kind of run base standard offense. And Jalen Adams is going to come set like a, I don't know what you want to call it. It's like a 3-1 ghost action almost, where Toohey is going to come around this screen here. And Adams is going to fake like he's going to screen and then come out to the wing over here this way. And as you can see, Toohey just kind of misplaces this ball originally, but comes back, stays engaged in the play. Awesome little throwdown. Obviously, early on, right? You don't love kind of the misshapen ball handling there. It looks like the ball gets kind of deflected coming out of his hand there by Wani, and then gets deflected here, I believe, as well by Tyler Harvey coming through, kind of blitzing the action from Jalen Adams. Toohey kind of telegraphs that pass, obviously, that it's going to the ghost screener and Adams. They obviously want to try and get Jalen Adams an open 3 there. Really good shooter. But I love that he stays engaged with the play. So you can see there, dribbles twice, goes up off of 2 feet, and just throws it down, right? You know, if you have a 9-foot standing reach, you might as well use it. You can obviously see there, Toohey's not the most explosive vertical athlete, but has the ability to get up and dunk. Like, he's had a couple of these this season already where he is going to really rise up. And Toohey is a guy that, you know, last year, for instance, when he played for Sydney, I thought was just really skinny and wasn't very powerful. Having seen him in person, you know, talked to him a little bit here and there at the Blitz, he just looks a lot stronger through his lower half, looks a lot stronger through his chest, through his shoulders. Looks like a guy that's really put on some good weight early in the season. And I would imagine that's helped him add to some of the explosiveness. We'll talk about some of the other athletic stuff throughout the video, but good sign there in terms of being able to use his explosiveness that he has to be able to throw down there. This next one here, 7 minutes in the first quarter. A lot of what Sydney does with Toohey in its offense is, at the very least, start him in the corner, and then maybe he comes up to the wing, comes up to the top of the key. But a lot of the time, he is just going to camp out in the corner for guys like Xavier Cooks and Jalen Adams to cook. This one, he's going to catch. He's going to fire. He's going to miss the 3, but I do just want to point out, just generally, I love the shot prep here. We're going to get into some of his more effective 3-pointers. He did make a couple in this game, if I remember correctly. You know, really strong, solid base. waiting for the ball, catches, gets his feet organized beforehand, has just that little bit of indentation from the knee there up to generate power. I think he is generating a lot more power through his lower half this season with the jumper. As you can see, I think that the shot comes out of his hand incredibly clean. You can see great rotation on this ball, right? Look at that ball spin. You can see just the logo spinning perfectly coming out of his hand. Misses the shot. You know, you're not going to make all of them. But I love this. One thing with Toohey that I love in general on defense, and we're going to talk about a lot of defensive clips with Toohey because I think he's a really interesting evaluation on defense. He's talking all the time, constantly communicating with his teammates, constantly trying to say, hey, pick this guy up, pick this guy up. That's your ball responsibility, Jalen Adams. He comes up, kind of blitzes the ball. Trey Kell doesn't really see him, former San Diego State guard. He ends up blocking the shot in transition, makes up for his own miss. Really, really sharp stuff there from Toohey. Next, we're going to get into just like a little dribble handoff action with Xavier Cooks, right? Sydney loves running these actions where a ball handler gets on the move for Cooks. Cooks can set a screen and then kind of short roll or roll all the way to the rim. Cooks is probably the most athletically dominant player, I would say, in the NBL, just in terms of functional athleticism on an NBL court. So he sets his screen here. He just kind of flashes to the foul line area. In general, it feels like teams are just going to go under stuff for Toohey right now until he proves that he's willing to shoot directly off of handoffs, until he proves that he's going to shoot off the dribble from three. That's not something he does a lot of right now. But I love the screen here from Xavier Cooks. Toohey thinks about taking the little shot there. It feels like he kind of squares up, has Kell kind of eventually, I believe, fight through this screening action. Cooks just kind of flashes into this area here. Toohey engages this drop coverage defender here, who I believe is Darius Days, former LSU player. Engages Days here. Spins back. Feels that he has both guys on him here, 1-2, and just gets this little scoop pass to the guy who's probably the favorite going into the season for the NBL MVP. Just really sharp, keeps it simple, right? Nothing too crazy there, but just keeping it simple. That's all you got to do. Toohey's not a guy that's going to have to be able to run wildly complicated actions. You just want him to be able to run dribble handoffs, right? Again, big. The idea here is kind of a 3-and-D-ish wing who can hopefully put the ball on the deck a little bit, but keep it simple like that at the end of the day. So being able to showcase that dexterity, being able to showcase, hey, I can throw these little scoop passes. Hey, I can run a ball screen if necessary. It's just little things that add up in his prospect profile that make him just a little bit more valuable potentially than maybe some other 3-and-D guys that come in at his size. Next one here, we're going to get into the defense. Here he's guarding Trey Kell. Sydney, by and large, has him guard a lot of different positional types, including perimeter players. You're going to see him throughout the course of this video guard guys kind of at the point of attack, even that initiate the offense. You're going to see him guard bigger players like Lockie Ulbrich. You're going to see him switch on to centers like Sam Froling and do a good job. They're very comfortable with him on anybody 1-5 in the NBL. We'll talk about some of my concerns there in the NBA, but by and large, you will see here, I think he does a pretty good job. Gets through, this screening action. I like that he's active there, gets his hands up, understands how big he is, and is just around, right? It's not like he does a great job getting through this screening action. You'd love to see him. He kind of tries to get that right foot around, thinking that Froling is going to stick on this screen here. He's trying to get that right foot around Froling. Froling just gives him that little bump. Again, 20 years old, coming from like a relatively physically underdeveloped body last season. He's probably going to get moved, but I know that last year he would have stuck on that screen at a really problematic level. This year, fights through it, shows real engagement, real effort, gets back into the play. And again, he's just a big guy. Like, again, came in at 6'8" with a damn near 7-foot wingspan at Hoop Summit back in 2023. If he uses his length, uses his arms, he's just a big dude. He's a big guy who takes up a lot of space out there. The mobility is something he needs to work on. We'll talk about that throughout the video, but again, just really, really sharp, fights, scratches, claws on defense. Back to offense this time. They get an offensive rebound. He's available. Again, just want to point out the bumps that he can give. You know, this year, he's capable of, hey, I'm being guarded by a smaller player here in Trey Kell, who's like 6'2". I can put my shoulder into him, bump Kell back, and then use this high release point above my head to be able to put this ball in the basket, right? Comes out of his hand super softly. Exactly what you want to see in that respect. Exactly what you're looking for here in terms of a guy using his size, crashing the glass, cutting once he realizes that Kell is kind of ball watching on the rebound here, right? So it doesn't get a body on him first, right? So Kell here just kind of ball watching this rebound. So Toohey's just going to kind of sneak in here and be able to get kind of ahead of steam, right? Ball gets tipped out to him by Cooks, shoulder in. Last year, I don't think Toohey would have moved to him at all. This year, Toohey, high release point, natural fade, makes that little shot in the lane. Next up, another defensive possession here. Toohey takes the bump on the screen. This is one that I don't love, honestly. In general, I think that his effort on screens is pretty good. I think that he is still recognizing all of the awareness that he needs, the recognition that he needs on certain things. So here, tries to fight through this action, just going through Sam Frolling's chest. That's a bad idea, but he does it early, right? When he has Cam Oliver already there, already on that right side of the court. I think he probably engages this a little bit too early. And for a guy with like relatively limited hip flexibility, relatively limited lateral quickness to an extent, I would say, it's just going to be hard for him to recover into these plays. That's just a little minor technical thing that he's going to have to improve. The effort, the communication, the overall team defense, we're going to continue to get into that. And I think it's actually generally quite good. The switchability when he's on the ball, I think is quite good. It's the screen navigation, just little things like this that he's going to have to improve. The awareness, just the reps at the end of the day playing professional basketball, right? So next up here, kind of filters back to the play. Ball is going to come out to Darius Days, then going to get flung to Tyler Harvey. They're going to run just this little ball screen action, right? Screen. He's going to go around. It's going to result in Days kind of coming this way. Toohey is down here in the corner. He's going to be the weak side help man. He's the low man in the ball screen. They're going to come up and set a second screen here with Lockie Ulbrich. Ulbrich's going to get this screen here. Sydney puts 2 on the ball, right? 1, 2. That means Harvey's going to hit Ulbrich as the release valve here. And the way Sydney runs its ball screen coverages, Toohey's the low man. He's responsible for the help, right? Comes out, helps. I love how active and engaged he is. But there is a but here, unfortunately. I love the recognition. I love that he sees, okay, this is going to the short roll man. The little hop to the ball, right? When you jump to the ball like that, and both of your feet leave the ground, you have no control over yourself. You have no control over if somebody attacks a closeout because you're in the air, right? You can't slide. You can't try and cut off. Something that pops up a little bit in his tape, he does get a little bit hoppy on defense in a disappointing way. There's another rep coming later in this video where you'll see he does a little bit better of a job, and where I think you can see some of the athletic tools play up in terms of his size and his mobility. I think this is more of a mechanical flaw and like a fundamental flaw right now, as opposed to this is cratering long term. But it is something he's going to have to improve. You can't jump to the ball like this. He is not somebody that has the quick twitch, the reactivity, the hip flexibility to be able to recover in situations like this. And really, you see what pressure it puts on his defense, right? And his teammates. Short roll here. He's going to jump to the ball. Isaiah Leafa is already coming down here to be the help man there. Wani Swaka is coming down to the corner here for Illawarra. That means that even though Cam Oliver is coming down to try and guard that same side corner, he's going to have to help off same side corner. There's nobody on the weak side there to really help because Leafa has to be there for the man directly under the rim. Oliver has to be there to be able to cut off this drive, and it just ends up being an easy same side kick out to Ulbrich. This is an open three that should probably go. Leafa does a great job going all the way from underneath the basket to close out on this. Leafa is a really, really high effort, high energy defender, but just a small thing, right? Small little incremental improvements, and we'll talk about that throughout the video. So this one, you kind of see him again, kind of jumps to the ball there, right? Just not something that you can do. Here he's guarding Hyunjin Lee, who's not really going to attack off the bounce a ton, so it's okay. But just like a little minor mechanical flaw that he's going to have to stop. The reason I put this one on here, though, is I actually love the recognition here. So, again, kind of hops to the ball. Ball gets swung over to Davo Hickey here at the top. Sean Bruce here is the low man. He's coming up to help, be the tagger on the roller. That leaves Toohey in a 1-on-2. He has to make a decision here and cut off an angle somewhere, right? He has to have the awareness and the recognition to know, okay, where are my defenders right now? Okay, I've got Isaiah Leafa coming back into the play. So I probably want to cut off the skip pass down here, knowing that if he passes it here to the wing, Isaiah Leafa should be able to recover. These are little details, little smart moves that you see from Toohey on the weak side. He just constantly is a smart basketball player that knows where he needs to be, right? There are tool question marks here, but the brain is not a question mark to me on defense. He knows where he needs to be, stays big, cuts off this angle here, allows Leafa to get back into the play, almost comes up with a steal, right? And then just kind of over pursues. Lee ends up drilling a three because, Hyunjin Lee is a fantastic shooter for anybody that remembers him at Davidson. But I actually quite like that decision from Toohey. I think it shows good recognition on the weak side, knowing where he needs to be defensively. This one, just kind of a trailer three, right? And you're going to get to see the full picture of the mechanics here. So he's coming down the court. Lee, they decide to put 2 on the ball for some reason. They're going to leave Toohey open. Doesn't hop into this. A lot of the time, he's going to be more of a shooter off the hop. You'll find, especially from the corners. This one, he 1-2 steps in. You can see energy transfer coming from the lower half here. I really like. Look at the bend. The shot prep is outstanding. 1-2 steps into it. You can see he's got real energy coming up through. And the other thing that I just love about this shot, and the reason I really buy him as a shooter long-term, the mechanics are just so simple, guys. It's just catch, 1-2, bang, not hopping into it super high, It's just so repeatable. Great rotation on the ball. So simple. It's picture perfect. It's what you want for a spot shot, right? I'm a big believer in Toohey being a really good corner 3-point shooter, being a solid wing, above the break 3-point shooter, being able to knock down 37 to 40-ish% from three. He could get better as he goes throughout his career, but at the very least, I trust him to be a really solid shooter throughout the portion of his professional career. So far this season, I mean, he's hitting an obscene 61% of his threes through 5 games. That's not going to last, obviously, but I buy him as a very, very real shooter. And I think there's a chance he could be a really, really high level shooter if he continues to work at it. He doesn't really do a ton off of movement yet, though, that makes you kind of buy that he's going to be like a crazy high volume guy yet. Maybe that will come in the future. Okay. So this one, I grabbed this one because I kind of thought it showed his overall scramble, defensive agility and effort, right? In the engagement he has on defense. So this one here, Lockie Ulbrich is going to take this ball. He has the angle on Isaiah Leafa to be able to drive. That means Kelly Leapepe, Loyola Marymount mulleted legend, for those of you who are college basketball fans, is going to have to step up and help, right? Toohey is responsible for Hyunjin Lee here, but you have to help the helper. So he engages Sam Froling here. Froling tries to seal him a little bit, but Toohey does a pretty good job of just staying attached, staying engaged. I think Ulbrich could probably throw this ball to Toohey or throw this ball to Froling, but there aren't a ton of great angles, right? Because of the way that they double this. So Leafa is right in front of him. Leapepe's here. It's going to be hard to do that. But Toohey being there and available is going to make it even harder, right? But you're going to see these two here, Leafa and Leapepe, are going to struggle a little bit to kind of sort through all of this, right? What happens after you stop the initial action? Well, really, what should happen is somebody should be switching onto Hyunjin Lee, right? Really, it should probably be Leafa. Should be sliding off of Lockie Ulbrich here. But he turns his head the other way. He's looking for Hyunjin Lee because I think he had the recognition that Lee was originally in the corner here. Lee is a smart off-ball mover. He starts kind of scrambling. Toohey figures out that the scramble is happening and just sprints. He just goes, right? I like the recognition to just go. You'd love to see him come down with that tough rebound, but I like the recognition to just go here. Realistically, in my opinion, the way that this should be sorted out, and this comes from somebody who I don't necessarily know Sydney's calls on defense. Maybe they do want Toohey to fight all the way through this, but given that Leafa is like a 6-foot point guard, I can't imagine that they want him on Sam Froling, who is 6'10 and is one of the best post players in the NBL. So really, it should be Leafa that's sliding off onto Lee. But I like that Toohey recognizes it. I like that he scrambles. I like that he flies off of the screen here, tries to fight through it. And I think he speeds up Lee and makes him miss the shot. You know, even just that little bit of second, third effort, that stuff really matters. This one here, you know, great cut here by Sean Bruce. Bruce out to Toohey, extra pass. Just a really sharp extra passer. Really, really smart. Just makes good decisions with the ball in his hand. Has a plan when he catches. That's another thing with Alex Toohey. Always has a plan when he catches the ball. He's either going to fire or he's going to recognize that closeout coming He's going to get it up to the shooter from the wing. Honestly, Layoff has never been a particularly good 3-point shooter. I might prefer that Toohey just take this shot. This is a long closeout. But the extra pass is good too. That leads to a wide open shot as well. Can't hate the pass. I like that he has a plan, though. I like that he has a goal that he's trying to achieve in mind. That's all the first quarter, by the way. First quarter is by far when the most interesting things happened. We're not going to go for an hour here with Toohey, but we are going to talk through some other stuff here that happened throughout this game. I like this. This is just smart, right? Like he's coming down, filling in transition, going to drive, patient, look at his eyes. Eyes are up. See in the court, trying to look, sees that he might have Froling coming down on a double. Again, this is not the most difficult pass in the world, but jump pass, get up over the top, hits Cooks right there on the money. I'd love to see Cooks keep that ball high and finish, but he gets fouled at the end of the day. Could have been another assist. Toohey finishes this game with 4. Very easily could have had 5 or 6, given that extra pass that Bruce just missed, that pass there to Cooks. Really, really just solid, smart game, I thought, from Toohey. This one, again, what are we looking at here? So Cooks has had to help down here. Sam Froling has the ball right here. In the second quarter, Sydney went to doubling Froling on the block for the most part. Again, Sam Froling, one of the best post players in the NBL. They double here. This means Toohey is responsible for the 1-on-2 on the backside. He recognizes it, gets himself set to where if he has to close out at the top of the key, does a good job there. I think he over pursues the closeout just a touch, but you can't complain because he gets the steal here, right? Again, kind of funky with his feet on the closeout, right? But you love the hand, right? That little hand in deflection there. He's tracking the ball the whole way. You can see with his eyes that he's legitimately tracking the ball. Taps the ball. He's looking, picks it up, gets out on the break, Euro step up over the top, and one finish, right? This is just really good. Again, this is the small, simple stuff. The thing that Alex Toohey does super well is he just keeps it simple, makes the simple reads, makes the simple pass there, makes a good decision here, gets himself in a positive situation to be able to close out, gets a deflection, gets out on the break, Euro, ball high, finish. Grabbed a free throw here as well, just to be able to watch the free throw mechanics. Pure as hell. Absolutely perfectly pure. Shooting 82% from the line so far. Took a ton of free throws at the NBL Blitz in his 2 games. I think he took like 9 per game. That won't happen during the regular season. He's taking like 1 per game so far in the 3 games. Can really, really, really knock down his free throws though. This one, going to get a switch. Ends up getting caught on the screen here by Froling. Ends up being a peel switch, right? Leia Pepe. Here, we'll just kind of run through this whole thing, right? So the initial switch there. Again, kind of gets caught on this screen. Screen navigation is going to have to improve in general. But he gets caught. Leia Pepe stays out high, gets his hands up. Toohey, again, you can see the arm out. He's calling switch, switch, switch. They peel it. He's got Froling on the block. Leia Pepe comes down. They communicate a switch back. He's going to come out here. Leia Pepe's going to go back that way on to Froling. Closes out. Just smart, solid, overall communicative team defense. That's what it comes down to with Toohey, right? He's not going to reinvent the wheel, but he's going to do things in a really smart way. This one, again, comes up. They switch the screen action just straight that time. He does a fantastic job sticking on the drive of Trey Kell. Again, multi-time all-conference player at San Diego State. Good professional basketball player. Again, stays home. Very easily could have tried. Remember earlier, he tried to make early contact on that screen with Sam Froling. Here, it's kind of stays at home, right? Realizes he is the man up over the top there. And I believe that's Cam Oliver again. No, it's Leia Pepe again. And he just stays home, stays ready, sits down, tries to attack the ball, drop step there to stay in front, and gets the strip going up for it. They called him for a travel on this. This was his only turnover. I kind of think the travel was bullshit. So he catches, takes 2 steps, gets rid of the ball, puts it on the ground, really takes. So catches 1. That pivot foot on the right is still on the ground while he's getting contacted there. Puts the ball on the ground. I think that's just a dribble, and B, I think that's foul, obviously. That was his only turnover today. So really, in my opinion, he ended up with what could have been 16 points, 5 or 6 assists instead of the 4 he ended up with, and 0 turnovers. That's who he was fantastic in terms of his decision-making, in terms of his ball control. This is the first play coming out of halftime here. They're going to run just this little pitch back action again that we saw earlier. Toohey's going to go around the screen. Going to try and hit Cooks with the ball on this little short roll. Ball gets deflected, right? Not ideal. They're kind of in a scramble because somehow Trey Kell ends up down here getting hit, I think, in the face somehow. But that was Toohey's guy, and Toohey recognizes it. So he comes out behind the 3-point line, gets 1 pass away. Easy jumper, wide open, right? And he's automatic if he's wide open. So just a smart relocation off of what essentially amounts to a scramble offensive rebound. Gets the feet organized, good base, great rotation on the ball. Very easy to buy Alex Toohey as a good 3-point shooter. This one, kind of like 2 plays later, I put this one on because, again, just love the activity, kind of like an awkward-ish, grab of the ball there. Balance, I think, is one thing that Toohey will have to improve just as he continues to add core strength, continues to add lower body strength. I think it will. But here, you get the spin back, and he's just kind of in hell here because he's got both of his defenders behind the play. 1, 2, now we've got 1, 2, 3 guys here that he basically has to be responsible for because he's got the roller coming down that way. He's got the ball handler coming down this way. And then he's got his man as well, right? So he has to get into a position where he can guard basically all 3 of these guys who have the advantage on his man. So what does he do? Gets right in between the ball handler and the basket. Makes it so that he is, if this little ball gets slipped here, able to drop step that leg back and at least try to engage Froling. But also, if this same side kick out comes this way, he's in position to be able to at least get a late closeout, right? You have to guard the rim first. Guards the rim. Contests the shot, gets the rebound, starts the break. Just excellent, excellent work. Super simple, but excellent. This one, again, relocation. Toohey gets the feet organized. This one, I think he just gets he's a little bit off balance, as you can see, right? He doesn't get quite as much engagement through his lower half this time. Really bends that leg deep in to try and get a little bit more power on that ball, right? Ends up firing that thing way over the basket. But I like the feet getting organized. Like I like that that's a balanced shot for him. He just ends up just not being able to engage, I think, that lower half with as much rhythm as he would like. And misses the shot, but I think there is some movement shooting potential, at least. He's not a good movement shooter yet. We just need to be clear about that. But there's at least some potential where he could make shots from distance. Next, again, comes out here, switches onto Froling. Theoretically, you would think this would be a mismatch, the 2 or the 3 on the 5-man here. But it's not, because Alex Toohey has a 9-foot standing reach. Just does a good job getting big and staying big, trying to disrupt, trying to stay solid. Doesn't really get moved back that far, right? For a guy that had strength questions last year, I really like what he does here on the block. He had a second one of these later in the game that was really important too. I didn't grab that one, but this one, he just does a really good job. Does a really, really good job staying engaged, being available. This one, again, communication, right? So Jalen Adams guarding him. He's on Tyler Harvey right now. Jalen calls out a switch. He stops, turns, slides to close out, slides up to close out. This is the better version of what I was saying earlier, where he kind of hops to the ball a little bit. This is an easy example of where he could have hopped to the ball coming out to Wani Swaka here on this closeout. Instead, he just takes those steps, right? Cuts off the driving angle, gets back in the play. They call out another switch. He stays attached there. Really, they kind of blitz it real quick, but he stays attached there, right? I think he kind of hops a little bit, but look, there are defenders in the NBA that are his size, that are his athleticism, that kind of hop to the ball. Sam Hauser does kind of take like a little skip step sometimes. That's what this kind of is to me. It's a little skip step, but really it's just a solid closeout to me. He's balanced, he's ready, contests, he's available on Darius days, does a good job forcing the reversal. Next, this is just him staying attached to everything too long, right? So here, this is essentially a double drag. I will say Illawarra did not run a ton of these. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you for sure the way that Sydney defends these. What I can tell you is the way that most teams defend these. Most teams will potentially switch this one. So you'd have or go way under, right? Depending on where you're set up. You have to communicate through it at the end of the day, though. Some teams will switch this. First one where they'll have Kelly go there and Cooks just attach himself to Froling. Some teams will just have Cooks go under this one, and then it'll just become a primary ball screen action, right? Between him and Toohey having to communicate. This one, though, it kind of goes under. And Toohey just kind of gets caught in the mud here. Typically, Toohey's responsibility here is going to be to play in either drop or to play as a switch defender or to blitz the ball, right? Just do one of three things here. Here, he just kind of passes off days and gets caught in the mud, and it ends up being an easy drive. The feet do get caught in the mud a little bit for Toohey. He ends up just kind of getting caught in the mud there. That's a nothing defensive possession to me. It's really the most disappointing defensive possession I think he had all game. But you can see there's just like very little margin for error with Toohey in terms of his movement ability. If he takes this step here, right, he's basically dead. Like, this is just an easy open driving lane. It's going to be way too hard for him to recover back into the play. Doesn't quite have that twitch to be able to do it. So how do you make it work? You have to be pristine with your footwork at the end of the day. And I think he's the kind of player that can be pretty damn close to pristine. He does have a lot of margin for error with the size. Again, teams much prefer guys that are 6'8" in this 3-and-D role than they do like 6'5", right? Because there's just a lot more margin for error in terms of covering ground on defense. Toohey does need to improve the footwork in ball screen actions. There's no question about that. But he has the size and he has the shooting and he has the want to defensively to be effective. This was just a disappointing rep, I think. This one, just watch. He engages out there. They kind of blitz it, and then he's recovering back onto his man. And then look at this box out. This is a perfect box out. He's kind of trailing the play. And then he attacks off the bounce. Gets a nice little Euro step. I don't know what you want to call this, like a floater through contact. But what I would tell you is that I don't think he would have done that last year. I don't think he would have dealt with the contact nearly as well last year. And this would have been a bit more of a disappointing result where he probably would have missed the shot. Does get the foul call, gets the and one. And look at Cam Oliver just pumping him up. Quick little chest bump. All right. Next. This one's just a drive, baseline. And again, the eyes are up, right? So we get the drive baseline here, catch, drive, attacks that front foot of Trey Kell. He sees the double coming, I think, as he's driving down baseline. And immediately the eyes go up. Like, you can see him turning and getting those eyes up. Looks, sees where the help is coming from, sees he's got at least one option here. Realistically, could have a second option there, but he picks the right option. This is just the easiest lane to throw there. Throws this just, left-handed off of a live dribble, right? No, he kind of gathers it, but throws it left-handed, which is a good sign. Not as impressive as a live dribble, but pretty solid to be able to throw that kind of on a dart with some velocity with the left hand right into the shooting pocket. Oliver drills it. I think that's the fourth assist. We're going to call it there on Toohey. That's the end of his game. They end up losing this game, I think 96-89. But overall, you can see just like a really solid performance from Toohey. That's what he is. I think that's the easiest way to explain him. He's just a really solid, big, rangy wing that is going to be able to knock down shots. And NBA teams are looking for that. Whenever I talk to NBA teams that attended the Blitz, NBA evaluators that attended the Blitz, the response I got in terms of his draft stock was somewhere like post-lottery to 40-ish. That was, I talked to 5 or 6 NBA folks that were there. I would say that it was like post-lottery first round for some, and then others were like, hey, let's say like 25 to 40, like something in that ballpark for an early grade.